Phoenix Rising. Out of the ashes of both Phoenix and Sand Serpent, a new family inverted coaster is rising at Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. With strong pacing and being the first of its kind in North America. Just how good is this family coaster? Find out in this review. Phoenix was an intimate ranger or inverting swinging ship that operated in the Pantopia section of Busch Gardens from 1984 to 2018. It was standing but not operating for 4 years after that and was finally removed in late 2022. Few intimate rangers are left, so this would actually be a rare flat ride credit to get on nowadays, and I really enjoyed the Huss Ranger I rode at Siam Amazing Park. For Southeast Asian fans, an intimate version is still listed as operating at Sunway Lagoon in Malaysia, which is home of Lost City of Gold as its only coaster. To pay homage to this Phoenix, Phoenix Rising is its spiritual successor, as it occupies some of Phoenix's space. Sand Serpent, as a coaster, was also closed and occupied the spot where the lift hill and most of the first section of this coaster is. As a low-capacity coaster, I can see how it didn't really fit into Busch Gardens, but I did really enjoy Sand Serpent for what it was, and I'm sad to see it gone in the name of progress. B&M is a strong roller coaster manufacturer famous for the larger coasters, such as Kumba and Montu at Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. This manufacturer has had a strong relationship with SeaWorld parks, as SeaWorld Orlando has 5 coasters from them. They debuted their family inverted coaster to compete with Vekoma's successful family suspended coaster back in 2014, and this model has a similarly open restraint system which makes those coasters great. As B&M inverts, in particular, have been praised for their forces and layout, this makes a lot of sense for parks seeking more family-style coasters. The family inverted coaster debuted 10 years ago, but was slow to make its way to parks in the United States, as only 2 had been built in China before Phoenix Rising opened in 2024. The Phoenix theming for this coaster centers around 3 different Phoenixes: Ignis, Protector of the Desert Realm, and the Firstborn Phoenix; Glacius, Protector of the Mountaintops and Glaciers; and Terra, the Protector of the Rainforests. These 3 Phoenixes make appearances in the projections that are shown in the station, as one flies around as the train departs, and another will fly around as the train returns to the station. This appears to be random, as there is no set order as to which will appear after the train leaves. This gives a little extra reride value or something fun to watch while you wait in the station. The actual animation of the different birds is not too different other than the coloring, but it is still neat to see. This is a cool bit of theming, and even with a very open station and coaster, gets one excited about the chosen theme for this ride, and I wish more coasters did something simple like this. If they could incorporate using projections during the main course of the coaster to have you flying with the chosen Phoenix, that would be really, really cool, especially for those watching off-ride, but I'll take the theming I can get here for sure. With a 42-inch minimum height requirement, this is the most accessible coaster at this park, other than Air Grover, the park's kiddie coaster. Even Cobra's Curse, which is a well-themed family spinning coaster, has a height requirement of 48 inches. With the heavy coaster lineup of Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, it is not a good park for families with younger children or those who don't want to ride coasters, though the park as a whole is beautiful to walk around. Phoenix Rising helps to address this by giving younger guests a coaster to ride. However, Sand Serpent and Scorpion already did this in their own way before their removal, so this coaster really doesn't fill as much of a niche as one might think it does nowadays. Dispatches on this coaster were fairly reasonable, but not super fast. Penguin Trek at SeaWorld Orlando has lightning fast dispatches with the easy to check lap bar and can run 3 trains at once. Phoenix Rising, like Vekoma family suspended coasters, only has 1 train total, It, unlike larger B&M coasters, only has 2 across seating instead of the traditional 4 across. I visited on a Monday, and getting on this coaster around 11 a.m. when this section of the park traditionally opens, there was little wait for this coaster. It did build up a 20 to 30 minute wait throughout the day, but that is reasonable considering it is new and has low capacity. It still was way better than SheiKra's 2-hour plus line, since SheiKra had 1 train in operation on my visit. On busier days, this coaster's line will likely become an issue. It currently is not included on Quick Queue, being simply a one-time ride on the highest level, as with most new SeaWorld coasters. But I imagine once it is, you might see a 45-minute Quick Queue wait on the busiest of days, as I've experienced such lengthy waits on Cobra's Curse and Scorpion in the past. The physical queue space for this ride, as with most modern coasters, is fairly small, with the intent of once it reaches an hour or so, it should be spilling out onto the midway to discourage guests from waiting a long time in line. As for seat placement, it was enjoyable in every row, so I wouldn't worry too much about fighting for a particular spot. The front row offers not just a nice view, but also a bit more enjoyable forces, as you can tell the rest of the train pushes you through the various elements. This coaster also has a lot of changing directions, and the front of the train allows you to whip around more during these directional changes, which adds a bit more forces than simply snaking back and forth. If it isn't much of an extra weight, go ahead and ride in that front row, but likely it will be a much longer wait, especially with one train operations, so you should be fine in any row. After the animation comes to life, you leave the station and travel up the not too tall lift hill. Most B&M inverts have a small pre-drop from the lift hill, followed by the main drop. This helps to not put as much stress on that initial chain lift. Phoenix Rising has a slightly larger pre-drop that gives a little bit of forces before leveling off, and continuing its downward drop a little bit to the right. This sequence is really fun, as this break mid-drop helps to amplify the forces on both halves of the drop, and gives the second half an extra kick. For younger kids scared of drops, I'm not sure how this feels, but it might be a bit more on the scary side. For a seasoned rider, it is some minor drop forces similar to an enjoyable family coaster or family drop tower. With strong pacing, you're immediately thrown into the next element on this coaster. After the drop, this is a large overbank as you turn away from the Serengeti. As you slow down at the apex, this feels like a mini inversion, as it is forceful and you get a pinch of hang time through the element. But with the strong forces, you don't get the sideways airtime that you will be getting a lot better later in the ride. The following valley offers a sharp directional change that will shuffle you in the front, followed by a sideways banked airtime hill. This doesn't give a lot of airtime, but any on an inverted coaster is unique, and the sideways profiling is similar to what you'd see on an RMC rather than an inverted coaster, and plays very nicely as a fun family element. Then you speed into a small S-hill that is low to the ground, which offers good shuffling towards the front of the train, but more just as snaking turns towards the back, before speeding into a beautiful overbank over the queue line entrance. This is not as forceful as that first overbank, as you have bled off some of your speed, but does give some of the sideways airtime of the previous airtime hill while looking really cool off-ride. You then turn to the right. With some overbanking, you get a bit of sideways airtime to start this element, and then more forces for the helix slowly come on. The helix is taken slowly, but you do have strong forces, so it is a very forceful finale that seems to last forever, as the forces started on that previous turn and are sustained throughout the entire element, which you really don't see in a lot of helixes on other coasters. You have a final 180-degree turn that leads you into the brake run, though this last turn doesn't do too much as you're about done by this point. Overall, how good is Phoenix Rising? This coaster takes the loose restraints of a family suspended coaster and adds B&M touch of strong pacing. Instead of the inversions and overly forceful elements of a large-scale B&M invert, this adds in sideways airtime and helixes that should be a part of any inverted coaster, as they are all fun elements. The rapid-fire pacing means there is no chance to catch your breath, and no part of the track where you just glide around, which would be fun on a family coaster, but helps make this an even better coaster in terms of thrills. Due to its location, my immediate comparison for this coaster is Scorpion, as Scorpion had a fun and forceful final helix, and an overall enjoyable layout, and I rank Phoenix Rising right above the now defunct Scorpion in my rankings. I place it right below the Eagle Warrior at Vin Wonder's Fuquad. Not only does the Eagle Warrior have top-notch theming with its queue line and solid light displays during its enclosed layout, but the layout for it is one of the strongest Vekoma family suspended coasters, with a solid drop and a forceful overbank. Still, when it comes to a pure layout, Phoenix Rising is better, and only loses to the Eagle Warrior in my rankings due to the great theming on that coaster. In many ways, Phoenix Rising is an even better coaster than what I rank it, as the sideways airtime and pacing are just that solid. But there just seems to be an X factor missing from this coaster, as there really is not a standout element, at least for me, though I can see this coaster rising in my rankings with future rerides. How enjoyable do you find family inverted or suspended coasters? Is Phoenix Rising too scary or not scary enough for you? Let me know, and as always, Cup Kun Krap.